Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Podcast Juice. My name is Michael Dean, and we are recording the podcast about Prince, aka the Prince Podcast. Yes, I said it, but we are here. We are back, and also recording out of a new location. This is the new home slash base Podcast Juice Northwest, I should say. Some of the other people are in different locations, but joining me today, Mr. Bigsexy and Saxer. How are you?
Man, I've been fighting this cold off for a couple of weeks, but it's all right because I'm relaxing and enjoying a lot of music lately. So I like that.
All right. And also joining us straight from Muse to the Pharaoh is Kanisa. How are you? Darling Nisi, I should say.
Oh, yeah, just out my whole government. Doing good.
I thought that was a known thing. My bad.
No, it is. It's just working a lot this weekend, so was breaking for today to be a normal person for once.
All right. And man, it's been a minute since you've been on this particular podcast, but I know you guys recently did a show. Well, what was the last show that you did for Muse to the Pharaoh?
Yeah, we were talking about some of the women in Prince's life, as it's always a point of contention. So we talked about some of the folks from the 90s and later from the professional standpoint, as not really getting into the gossipy stuff, but wanting to give people some background so they can, check them out.
Got it. All right. We'll definitely make sure everybody checks that out. And also, before we get going here, we want to shout out to Antpooh. He couldn't make it at the last minute. Daddy duties. So that's definitely a great reason to not be here because I can understand that. So salute to him. But anyway, let's go forward. We're going to do a review today of the Prince book, The Beautiful Ones. We've been talking about this book for months. There's been all these other books that have come out about Prince, whether it's picture books or other people's bio books or whatnot. But here is the one that is billed as Prince's memoir. All right. And I'm saying that to make a point later. But this is the one. We've been anticipating this for quite some time. When he was alive and the news came out about this, and then his passing, and we wasn't sure if the book was going to come forward. And here it is. It's 2019. That book has arrived, and I believe salute to Prince and the State and everybody. Book is number 1 on New York bestsellers list. If I'm not mistaken.
That is correct.
So salute to them on that. But we want to give our thoughts on this now that we've had some time to digest the book. It's been out for a couple weeks, I want to say, a little bit more. So we'll do this. We'll start with ladies first. I'm on my Queen Latifah. Darling Nisi, what are your thoughts on Prince, The Beautiful Ones?
Okay, so if you follow me on social media, I mentioned how I was going to take a break because I didn't want to see all the little spoilers and out of context headlines, because I was looking forward to Elton John's book as well. And there were so many different headlines that were like, oh, he said this and this and this. And I started to see those a little bit earlier than the press embargo for Prince's book. So I was like, I don't want to learn anything about this book from all this crazy media. So I got off of social media. I didn't go on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, and I had people texting me like, Kanisa, did you see? I'm like, I didn't see anything. I don't want to know. And so what I did was I went up to North Georgia mountains via this getaway house thing, which is basically like a trailer in the middle of nowhere. And there's like no cell phone signal hardly. And it's just you're in nature, so that I could have a book and just read it there. And so it was like nighttime. I had my candles and everything all day long. I listened to acoustic Prince and stared out this big picture window that was part of the trailer to get into the mood. And then I was ready. I had my tea and my stuff ready to go. And so I read it. Of course, the beginning is, the Dan Piepenbrig's kind of experience writing the book. And I was like, oh yeah, that's good. But then there was Prince's part. And that's the part that I was most interested in. I wasn't at all interested in the pictures. I just wanted to know, how are you speaking to your own life through your own words and not anybody else's interpretation of your words? I don't care about the rest. I just want your words. So I read that, and I read it slow. And of course it ended quickly. But the thing that, and I wrote this in my mini review, the thing that was most impactful to me was reminding me how old he was, because I I know that Prince was just a couple years younger than my parents. They were born in 52 and 53. But some of his phrases that he was using are the same things that my parents say all the time. His experiences, only slightly different than my parents. It's just like, whoa. And I thought about that because, he's so ageless to all of us. And it's just like, wait, but he was like almost 60 when he passed. And literally from a generation that I'm familiar with because all of my aunts and uncles are just like him. He obviously could have been one of them. From his the way he grew up, even my parents had similar situations growing up, especially my mother. So like as I was reading his, it just made me want to call my parents and be like, I appreciate you guys so much more for what you've done for me, because it's just looking at it from a different view, I guess. And it really made me appreciate so much like what everybody of that generation did for my generation later, and the barriers they broke and the way that they lived so that we could have more freedoms and the way we express ourselves now. And then there are the pictures, which again could have been, an uncle of mine. And it was just really interesting to see because, in my fantasy life, I'm like, oh yeah, Prince is fairy god boyfriend, but it's like, not really. Prince is more like the uncle. and yes, there's so much of him. He's very sexy and stuff, but it's more to it than that. And I just really appreciate the way that resonated from just a really personal place. And he's always been very personal. And I've always liked him so much because he was such a conglomeration of like my family and the music that we listened to growing up. Like even the songs he named, like I did a tweet and listened this past Friday of the songs that he named and other songs that my parents were growing up and would play all the time, which I'm sure he was familiar with because he named a bunch of them in his book. So it was like, it just really brought home how much he feels a part of my family, and the way I relate to him is because of the Black experience of, the boomers, as it were, and how they grew up and just how much that is part of my heritage. And I guess in a nutshell, well, overall as a book, though, I didn't really like it, to be honest, because I was really, again, only interested in Prince's part. If it was only like the 20 or so pages that were his, that would have been enough for me. And I feel like the rest of it was kind of fluff, which, it had to be because he didn't, write that much. But like I said, I was really only interested in what he said. And I guess kind of interested in the sidebar notes that Dan would add as conversations that they had or things that he had said then. But it's just like, yeah, I was only interested in Prince's words. The pictures were cool. But yeah, that was it.
All right. Bigsexy.
Sorry about that. Well, for me, and again, I got the book the day it was released. It was shipped to me through Amazon, and it was very, for me reading it, it was almost like a cathartic experience because, like Nisi said, you're hearing and reading his words about things like growing up, and being in these little bands and getting with these girls, and you see the things that go along with that. A lot of the artifacts, like the pictures, the little drawings. And he's clearly creative as all get out, because he would draw little pictures that go with things, and you'd see lyric sheets later on, all these other things in the picture section. But I was rereading this morning about his selection and interview of Dan Piepenbring about being his, I don't want to say collaborator, but someone who was writing the book with him, and things they talked about. And that got me thinking about things. And, a lot of the things one of the things Prince said, he said, to Dan, he said, how would you solve racism? And Dan came up with like a really clinical answer that you'd give in a job interview. When I read that answer, I'm like, that's a good answer. No, no. He knew Prince wanted more than that, and it makes you think. And there's a quote that a lot of people have said. I've said it myself a million times. You got to walk before you can run. And Prince said, no, that's a slave mentality. I thought about that. And I could see where he's coming from. Prince, to me, what I gleaned from that is, don't let anyone place their limitations on what they think you should be about on you. Do your thing. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, that's okay too. Do your thing. And as I looked at it through that paradigm, he talked about the music industry, which we all know he's had beef with. And we all know, I say we, I mean us serious Prince fans, we all know when he first got signed, he told Warner's, he said, look, don't lump me in just with black music. I thought about that. I'm like, well, that's unusual. And then reading in the interview portion, you know, how that's been done from day one in this industry. You know, they will take people who look like myself, Michael, and Nisi, and say, look, we're going to market you here to this small segment. And if by chance your music escapes that area organically, great. We'll market you to other people too. But for now, you stay here. In other words, you know your place. That's not going to work for me. And that didn't work for Prince. And I just enjoyed the interaction. And Prince, you know, for all people saying or what they've seen and all that, just a normal cat. You know, he drove himself around. And I don't know who the quote was attributed to. Mike has told me that he thinks it's a certain person. I don't want to name names, but someone who used to work for him said, it is my God-given duty to protect his recordings. And Prince is like, wait a minute. Are you saying that I can't take care of my own affairs here? I do brush my teeth myself in the morning, you know? And I thought about that. I'm like, shit, he's right. He's right. He was all about the owning of your creativity, about your intellectual property. And so many people don't see that. And there was a section in the book that said he wanted this to be a how-to book written or wrapped in an autobiography, wrapped in a biography, which I thought, wow, that's heavy. But I enjoyed it. It's one of the books that I like to look at just for reference material and for inspiration sometimes because, you know, this may be a bulletin, but I don't know everything. And I like to get different thoughts on things, especially in areas of intellectual property and creativity. Mike, the floor is yours.
Okay. All right. Let's see. So I was so excited to jump into this book. And one of the things that really got me excited for it initially was it the New Yorker piece that had some of Dan's intro in that. I remember reading that when it came out and I was just like, whoa, okay. I wasn't quite sure at the time if that was going to be in the book or if it was just written for the article. Obviously, reading it now, that was pulled from the book and it goes a little longer than that. And like Kanisa, I think she said she enjoyed that part. I think she was more interested in Prince's stuff. I will say that part of the book, I enjoyed it a lot. Like, I found it very, as I like to say, interesting. One, to hear Prince's thoughts and the things that, the questions he was asking, and you got to see a little bit of the process of like how he was working on this book with Dan. I thought that was enthralling, to listen to that. Let me say this. I tip my hat to Dan. Was it Piepenbring? That's his name.
Yeah.
I tip my hat to Dan. And I'll say this, and the reason I say that is because if he is in fact the editor of this part here and wrote this, he could have easily have edited out or omitted a lot of the things that Prince was talking about that had to deal with race and things of that nature. He could have just kept it. I just want to speak about the music or for whatever reason. I love that he kept that in. I don't know if there was other stuff he may have left out, but I tip my hat for him to put that stuff in there because to me, that man, that Prince of 60, whatever years, his mindset, I wish we had more of an opportunity to hear that play out throughout the music going forward. And I would have been very interested to see what Prince would have attached himself to or would have been speaking out or not against, because the world, at least America, surely went into a whole different place. And Prince usually always has something to say about whatever's going on. And just by kind of seeing the things he was kind of talking about, I would have loved to see how that would have played out. I also got the impression that Prince was very cognizant of how he would be perceived saying certain things in whether it's the media or his projects. Because I think he said something about, I could say this, but I don't want to sound like Kanye West, and not to diss Kanye, but people would see me as being arrogant or something like that. And to me, a lot of the stuff he was saying was codified in a sense, or at least as I can, but I understand exactly what he meant. And I looked at him and I was like thinking about the things that he's done over his career and the moves he has made, and listening to this behind the scenes glimpse of him, because let's be clear, these conversations he's having with Dan were not for our consumption, right? This was a conversation he's having with another man about something they're working on. This was not something he was standing on the mic telling us to put out there. So to see how he somewhat thinks behind the scenes as opposed to what he shows to the public was very telling to me. And I could see that he is very cognizant of, I know how some of my fan base could take some of these things. I'm just kind of throwing in my thoughts. Let me get this cat here, Dan, to sort of filter through this so that it just don't come off as, how would I say is, I'll show a Prince that they may not be ready to see. You know what I'm saying? Like, some of my fans may just want to see me as how I have been presented and how I've allowed myself to be presented. But obviously some of the things that he was talking about would blow the minds off of a lot of Prince fans if it would just came raw and uncut out of his mouth and not sort of filtered through. One is filtered through the lens of he's not here anymore. Two, through the lens of this is a and B conversation and now they're sharing it to the public. So I would have been very curious, like, how would he have had, so that all that stuff you just said, like that slave talk. If Prince had said that out to be in public consumption, there would have been a head buster for some people. Whoa, my man, he's on some others. Oh, really? No, if he would have, again, the stuff he said about Jimmy Iovine, if he would have said that out in public, it would have been some ramifications behind that, right? Just as we see now when these Quincy Jones or certain people, they get out here, they just be saying, hey, it is what it is. And they say something, they be having some blowback, whether it's from, social media or from the actual person, or it's behind the scenes where, oh, he's talking like that. Yeah, go ahead and shut his stuff down, or he ain't working over here no more. So it'd been, so a lot of little things that I was like, man, that's okay. That's, you see how Prince probably really was. And if you take that and piece it into that Ebony, or is it Essence article that our friend Miles did, and how some of that conversation might have been a little too much. Oh, you go ahead and pull that back. I don't think they don't probably want to hear me coming at people. It may sound like I'm coming at people. And just like you mentioned the thing about the lady said that, and we're talking about Susan Rogers. We keep it a buck here. When Prince was talking about Susan Rogers, he was like, nah, I don't agree with that. Let me call the cops on that situation. He was saying the same sort of things in that other interview, but maybe he felt like, you know what, that it may seem like I'm mad or I'm coming at people. Yeah, pull that back. So, but you can see he's consistently talking like that behind the scenes. So I was like, that gives you a little glimpse of, yeah, dude wasn't no pushover, man. He wasn't no sucker. He was an older dude. He came through the civil rights era and the struggle and all that. He like you said, he like your uncle, or he like your dad and them homeboys. They older than us. So they have a different way of looking at it. They ain't worried with all this foolishness. And he definitely wasn't. And some of them look at things, obviously, with their racial lens, because that's just the world we come through. So I felt everything he was saying. So I thought that was very fascinating to see that. Now, to get to the actual reason why we came to get this book, because the book is called a memoir. Let me say that. I enjoy it. I'm going to say this and then I'm going to say what I feel. I enjoyed looking at this for a lot of different reasons, but I will say this: after having it for a while, I actually question if they should actually put this out. To me, it's not a memoir; it's incomplete. The part that Dan wrote was good, but would I have bought a book just to read that? Probably not, unless it went longer and deeper into other things. It was just as enlightening to me as if I read it online for free on the New Yorker, which I did. It was just an expanded version of that, but his writing was good. Again, would I have been interested to hear a younger white dude's opinions on? And I'm throwing it through the lenses of how I look at it. Would I have been curious to what he thought about Prince? No, not necessarily. No, like why would I? What has he done? I haven't read none of his works. I'm not familiar with it, so I wouldn't be inclined to care what he thought about it. But being that he was chosen by Prince, right? Which I understand why Prince did that. And now they wanted to keep him a part of the project, which I have no problem with. I think he should be. To me, it just read as he's a young man who's a Prince fan. Let's keep it clear. I can see he's a Prince fan, but I thought there was some things that he could have went deeper on from those conversations, but he may not have had no experiences to really flesh those out or understand some of the reasons why those questions Prince was saying. Or again, you're talking to an older black man who has these experiences. He's a superstar and he comes from the north side of Minneapolis. So there's a lot of things in there that could be fleshed out and really get into. But again, you're talking to somebody who don't have those experiences. So how would they know to dive into that? So that part was cool, but the Prince part was fascinating to me, but it was cut short, unfortunately. And after I read it, I had to ask myself, man, Prince would have never put out nothing that wasn't finished. Not to that level. To me, like if that was a song, that was just the beat and the lyrics done as a freestyle. But it wasn't, those lyrics probably wouldn't have really made the verses. He would have started the verses based off of those, but they would have never been released as the song. That's how I kind of see this book. These were literally his writings in a notebook or paper that he was giving to this guy to edit and flesh out, but they didn't get to really do that. So as much as fascinating as the information that was contained in there and about his childhood and stuff, I know he wouldn't have put it out like that. It just opens it up to make me wonder because he was kind of going a little deep into some of his family stuff, but I was curious if he would have finished this. I wondered if he would have even released the book. If he'd have been like, you know what, this might be just too much. I don't want to put me out there, and maybe I don't want to put my family out there like that. I had to think about it again. This is an older dude. A lot of us, even young cats, don't want our business in these streets. So you know what I mean? Like he is so protective of the things that we know about him. So to me, it's shocking. Like he would go so much into his history, and then we talk. This girl right here, my first crush, and here's this picture. I'm curious if he would have finished the book, would he have kept those types of things in it? It just felt like this was more of a raw. Let me just get it out first, and then figure out what I'm gonna put on the page. But by release, so I said, let's say by releasing it like this, I deal with it for myself to understand he would have never put this out. But I am not one of these people that would be like, Prince would never do this, so you shouldn't do. I say, hey, it's a product now. So you can read it if you want to. I'm just dealing it from myself as a fan. I was going to buy it regardless. But I just understand that I know what I'm looking at. Right? But the things that were there that he's talking about his family, I looked at it as a lens, I guess I can say a 50-year-old father at this point. It was heartbreaking to me. Because one, I can see some of myself in that. been through some of those experiences. And I was like, this is how our kids, to me, you got to see the mind of a child written by an adult who went on to become something his parents could have never imagined, or even his friends, for that matter, would have never known he would have become this icon person, right? He didn't even necessarily, well, maybe he did know that. But it's written from that vantage point, which most of us don't get to sit at those types of vantage points to reflect back on our life and have a different experience, and not just to say, oh, well, I grew up to be a senior citizen and I'm just living a normal citizen's life. He's living the extreme citizen's life. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's a world-renowned superstar. So it's interesting to hear a world-renowned superstar Black man, older dude, can look back and go back to his youth and revisit it all to the point when he was just a child, and he just has these inkling rememberings of his mother and his father, and talking about their relationship and then them separating, how he viewed that. I just was like, man, this is how our kids look at us. And then how it goes to shape their life. You can see little things in that, and through the things he's talking about, and you can see, oh, he doing the same thing throughout his career. And you see how how he had dealing with ladies. His, stuff he may wear, or why he may make these decisions. For me, I kind of could see this. I was like, wow, okay. This puts a lot in there. Maybe he was throwing little things at us all the time in his music, and you didn't know if it was just some shit he made up for the songs, or if it was really drawn from real shit. So it was very, I was like eye-opening. I said, wow, okay. But, and I wrap this to say, it ends so abruptly, obviously, and sadly. The rest of the book sort of goes into, I'll just say that it was like, it was kind of exploitive to me. Though I like the book, but I'm just saying, I don't know if Prince would have said, here, take my private photo album and put that in the book. I don't know if that was his plan. Maybe, I don't know. But I highly doubt that he would have done that. So it's a little weird to me. I was like, well, okay. Though this is interesting, it would be just as interesting if you went over to your family or your homeboy's house and his grandma and them came out with their family books. So here, take a look. You'd be like, wow, there's you when you was. But this is Prince we're dealing with. So when you see these people in here, I'm like, wow, okay, there go Andre. Like, man, I was like, man, I can't imagine how he feels. And you saw there's a picture of his mom, and I was like, man, wow, okay, these are real people. You know what I'm saying? When you see it historically, you see these people, I was like, man, it's just like you at somebody's house looking at their book. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's their real peoples. But I was like, oh, it'd be one thing if they handed it to you to read it, versus if it was put in a book and your grandmother didn't get to make that choice. But I mean, hey, so that's how I kind of looked. I was like, okay. And then I was like, there's cool pictures in here. But I was starting to think like, a lot of this stuff could have probably been used, if you're going to use it. I could have saw it being used in the liner notes of a special edition of a particular album, because it seemed like some of the stuff was specific to this album, and then it kind of jumps to 1999, and then it kind of went into had a parade pictures in there, and then it jumped back to Purple Rain, and I was like, it's kind of all over the place, and it's not getting its proper like exploration. You know what I mean? Like, it's just little bits and pieces of here. And I was like, I don't know. This is, and there wasn't any commentary to the pictures. The commentary was further back in the book. So I was like, who's going to go back and look at pictures and then go to read and then go back to find out? Why couldn't they have put those commentary right next to the pictures at least? And some of again, I'm looking in the completest eyes. Some of the pictures were already in the book earlier, or some pictures were pulled from other picture books we have been published already. And you got to keep track of the story. Like, if you were watching a song and it was pulling riffs from another song into this song, Like, that wasn't that other song you just did, or why would you keep showing me the same stuff? So does it sound like I don't like the book? I did like it, but I'm just saying I question the book. I'm a consumer. I can do that. And as a Prince fan, I question if it should have been released. Obviously it is. I think it's worthy of you to go buy, but I would say to me, it's not Prince's memoir, right? His life was so long and he didn't get to finish it. So, you know, it is what it is. I just thought it, but I think it's a fascinating type of look, but it's not what I wanted it to be ultimately. And it couldn't be. It couldn't be because Prince wasn't there to finish it. And it's written, and the first part of it is written by somebody else. I question if this was any other person of this stature, would they put out a book and call it their memoir if he only written 20, 30, 40 pages? Like, I don't know if they would do that. But I'm just giving you my honest reactions to the book. And I'm running on my mouth. Antpooh is here, if I'm not mistaken. Ann, are you here?
Yes, I am, sir. How's it going?
It's going good. So we're giving our thoughts on the book. So you came at the perfect time. So let us know, what did you think of The Beautiful One?
I'm kind of like 50-50 on it. At first, they had the writer, I'm sorry, his name is escaping me at the moment.
Dan.
Okay. And he was talking about the process that he undertook to be chosen as the writer. And I thought, okay, this is some pretty good insight. You know, as a Prince fan, I can imagine if not only I was in the running, but then a finalist and then being flown to Minneapolis to meet Prince, to be considered to write his memoir. That's a pretty good story. The problem is that I didn't want to hear his story first. Mm-hmm. And as he went on and on, I was like, okay, are we going to get the Prince? Where's the memoir at? Are we going to get the Prince? Are we going to get the Prince? I ended up just I didn't even read the rest of his story. That might have been good, but Prince's initial memoir was more engaging that I didn't even go back to read, you know, how that story ended. So that kind of rubbed me just the wrong way. I'm not going to get on my conspiracy brother, but I'm just saying he could make an appearance and have some things to say about that. The other side of that, yes, it was too short, but I mean, you got to forgive the brother. He died and all. But the glimpse that he gave us with, you know, the stories of his mother, learning some things that I didn't even know, the skipper and the way she would look at him and give him that wink and whatnot. Some of the stories from his own mouth about the admiration that he had for his mother and his father. You know, it is kind of sad that we didn't get to finish it because it started off as a love letter. And I don't know if that's the right term, but there was love from him to his parents, and you can really sense that in how they shaped him and what they did. And then we got a little bit of Mackish Prince that, he was telling us that, you know, he wasn't so much what we come to expect with the quote unquote harem of beautiful women, and how it, in my opinion, how it began. It's kind of anticlimactic, but it's very entertaining to see. He didn't choose her. She chose him. And I was just like, wow, okay. And I'm thinking like part of that is kind of like, okay, of course a woman chose up on Prince. But the other point is like, we kind of used to Prince choosing up on women. So that was kind of, you know, a reverse of what we've come to know of that man, seeing that back in middle school, how he was and how, you know, yeah, the ladies were chasing after him, but they actually literally had to come get him for him to really supposedly get that. You know, again, it's sad to we didn't get more of it, but I get your point about how the liner notes and those quotes were all over the place. But I kind of enjoyed it to hear him speaking, which for me, it was kind of eye-opening because I could have sworn like he didn't give his first interview to that 1982, 83 Rolling Stones article. And they had stuff from 78, 79, 80 with LA Times with Minneapolis. And I was just thinking like, I've never heard or seen any of this stuff before. So yeah, it was kind of disjointed, but at the same time, it kind of was. I felt like they were kind of telling a narrative of who Prince was musically and what he had been through and what he was doing.
Yeah, I can see that. Again, I think it depends on who picks up this book. Like I could see a casual person very much that picked this up and would be like, wow, a lot of this stuff I didn't know. Or even again, I think us Prince fans, we was going to grab that regardless. Right. There's a lot in here still. But I'm just saying in terms of it being a memoir, again, you made the point about you didn't really want to hear Dan sort of thing. And, again, it's one thing that Prince picked this guy to do this with him, which I think is dope. But it would, again, I can only say, like, if this was, I don't know, whoever you want to pick, another icon, and the first part of the book was somebody, that's not known in that world, would you be interested to hear their sort of thoughts on it? You might be, I don't know.
It went on. I was, if he wasn't the first person, and if he was the first person that we were reading about in his book, it damn sure shouldn't have been as long as it was.
Yeah, I mean, when the original New Yorker article came out, I had a huge reaction to it because, of course, on Muse, we do a lot of Prince as a Black person, and we've done 2 different podcasts on what it's like to be a Black fan, as well as kind of navigating from beginning of Prince's career to when he passed and all the different kind of Black angles of how he navigated his career. And so a lot of stuff that was in the New Yorker article and in the intro of this book validated so much of what we said, like even using some of the same phrases or like our same sentiments. It was hugely validating. But I kind of agree because it's like more than half of that book text-wise wasn't even Prince's words. And like, I get that they were using, the intro to be promotion for the book for people to buy it. And a lot of what Prince was saying from the interviews in the intro was important, especially when you're talking about race relations in America and what he felt about that and how he was legit like down. But and it's important for people to hear that because even when I posted that on my Facebook, there are people commenting like, oh, Prince believes all lives matter. And then people were jumping in to say, he literally did not say that. He literally said the opposite of that. And I think it's interesting, even seeing what people are saying about this book now. Not a lot of people are talking about that angle, even now after he's said all of this stuff. And I've even seen people say that they weren't even interested in Prince's words. They were more interested in the picture. So it's just like, it's people. This book is to people what they want it to be, and they will see what they want to see out of it. For me, as a Black woman, it was hugely validating from what he said at the beginning or in the interviews, and as well as, his own words. But like, as long as that intro was, even though it was annoying, I think it was important, some of the things that he conveyed from Prince's point of view. It was just like the other side of it. I sort of question, like, why did you get a fan who saw you as an icon rather than as a person to write your story? Because like Michael Dean said, it takes a lot out of like, you're just so happy to be there that you don't have like not even an initiative, but the context or the knowledge to really dig into what he's saying to pull more out.
Yeah. And I can understand why Prince went the route that he did. He's a very savvy dude, right? He understands like, yo, I can't just come out and push this line that I want to push. He's talking a lot of racial type of things. And it's like, you know what? Yeah, I have to filter this through. Again, to me, he was, as I say, very savvy. He understood his business. He understood how his image was. And I think he knows like, yeah, I can't. I might be behind closed, behind the door at Paisley Park. I might be going in, but that may not play to my fan base. To me, I would be one of the reasons probably why we didn't get to really hear like, was it Welcome to America or something like that, right? It was probably going in on certain. I don't really want that smoke right now, get in the way of this other stuff. So let's hold those songs back. It's a little too political on that. You know what I mean? Or just different things. And maybe this might have been the reason why he could come and bounce off of, oh boy, what do you know about Tulsa, Oklahoma? Let's get on this and see, maybe gauge how that dude would respond to it. So let me, okay, yeah, maybe I'll put that part in the book. Maybe I wouldn't. But to me, again, I'm going to give one shout out to this one cat. Was it Scott Woods? Is that his name? The
Yes.
writer. Now, I'd imagine if he would have had written, if these things would have been said to somebody like that, who can articulate these things from some experiences and been able to say, well, this, here's sort of the cultural points about what Prince is talking about and blah, 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 whoop-de-whoop. That would have been very interesting. Now, some people might not want to read that, but I'm just saying, this is what Prince is talking about. But, neither here nor there. But, I think the book was very enlightening in certain areas. I'd be honest, I got the book the day it came out, read it that night, and I hadn't touched it until the other day. Because I was just like, I was kind of heartbroken after looking at it. I was just like, man, your life can, I'm not feeling sorry for Prince. I don't like to do that where, I'm so sorry for him. He was putting signs and fuck that. He lived his life. He lived the life he wanted to live, for better or for worse. But he wasn't no come and help me. I don't know what I'm doing or sorry. Dude was not that. You know what I'm saying? He was a man. You know what I'm saying? So I don't feel sorry for him. I just feel like, man, you never know when your life can be cut short. And he still had a lot he was going to do. And that's why I was like, man, it sucks, because this was, to me, was a head buster. Because I was like, man, you could be planning to do whoop this and that and the third. Well, boy, your shit can be done like that. And, depending on how you leave things, this is what could happen. Or, and then, this came right off the heels of the Morris book. It's like, oh, man, it was some things you don't get to go back and say, hey, man, let's do this now. Or I love you. Or whatever plans he may have had with this book that he was going to tell people about certain things. I wonder, because he's mentioning certain old friends in his life, that he was going to be trying to reach out to those people and reconnect, or I wonder, like, how was this going to tie in with the piano and mic shows? To me, looking at it now, I can see they was going to be hand in hand with each other. I could see, like, I think maybe the shows would have, went all the way to this book. You know what I mean? Like, you could see now he was kind of throwing some of that in that show. That's what that was about. And it was like, yeah, let me get my, and it's going to, the end result would be this book, and I'm, a whole new thing for Prince. You might, learn some stuff about him, but we never, you don't get it. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it was cut short. And so to me, it was like, this was a head buster to be like, yo, man, let me go call my kids right now and make sure they know, your dad loves you, your mom loves you, or call my parents or call my friends or whatever, and don't take nothing for granted. Oh, you're going to do this? You plan on doing this? Then you better do it. Because your shit could be cut short, man. And I'm not even getting into, did he die? Was he murdered? I ain't even having that conversation. I'm just saying he ain't here. And I'll say this is, to me, I always want to know what was going on with these book release parties where they had the Dan dude. Because I'm like, Prince was talking about in this book basically having black business, and he didn't want, slave talk. And I was like, it's just so ironic that I don't see no people with a black people. I mean, who?
There's one in New York.
Who the face of this book?
There's one in New York. They have NPG, Spike Lee.
Have they did that already?
It's in the 18th.
Oh, okay.
I think that's the only one that I've seen, though, that was black centered.
And I'm like, it's highly ironic that they got the book. And I know who's they, Mike. Yeah, no, stop. You know what I'm talking. I get it, but salute to the estate. I hope this thing is very successful. It's just ironic. That's all I can say, man.
Well, can I ask a question that's a little more lighthearted?
Sure.
So the thing that was striking to me, the way he talked about women, especially the young women that he was coming up with, he was speaking of them so reverentially. I just have a question. Do you guys remember your middle school crushes to the level that he did in speaking about them? Or is that specific to Prince?
Oh, I remember.
yeah.
I can remember, yes.
Definitely.
Not to that level, but I can remember.
Because he was real detailed. I'm like, it was interesting to me, like how much they say dudes aren't sentimental about stuff. I'm like, all y'all got crushed when you were like 12 and you're holding it on your shoulder for the rest of your life. That's what it seems like.
Now, the thing that shocked me is he knew the first and last name, which I'm like, I couldn't do that for the life of me.
If they have that much an effect on you, yeah, you remember. I think that goes for men and women, I would say.
Does it? I don't know.
Oh,
really? Well,
okay.
I might be different though. I was just wondering.
Hilarious.
Because I thought it was funny because we were in the Discord the other day and y'all were talking about, I want to see Prince's little black book and his notes, and you essentially got that in this book.
Oh yeah, that would have been if the beautiful ones that's what it was. That would have been a very interesting book. But I think that was cool though. That I mean, to me, I don't want to say it humanized him. He was always human, but it made me, like Ant said, he wasn't some Mac from the beginning. You know what I mean? He was a regular young man who was nervous around girls, or, you know what I mean? Like he wasn't like this dominating force to women and they would just buckle at their knees to him or something. You know what I mean? He was a regular guy. Like he had the same sort of things we all kind of had. And I thought that was dope, but I could see later on, I'm like, see, this is why I wish there was some that could ask these questions. Like, so him coming through that, and then I want to know what Prince thought. When did you become, or even if you ever did become this very overconfident, I don't know if it's overconfident, but very confident and have no problem speaking to women. You know what I mean? Like where you are the man now. Like I'd be curious what his thoughts are, women, of where he's like, I don't know if she has my best interest at heart. Like, does she just want to give this to me because I'm a star, or does she really want to talk to me? You know what I mean? Like, that would have been interesting to see now that we see where he started his interactions with women. How did he feel later when he becomes this object to women?
Or even if it even changed.
True.
Or if he was just better about, holding back. Because he did say something about, I learned that I always have to keep a piece of my heart. And like all the gossip you hear is that you know Prince, but you don't really know him, especially when it comes to relationships. And it's like one woman will speak of him this way, another will speak of him in a different way. And I'm not trying to psychoanalyze, but you can see how someone could come to be that way in the way that he talks about his mother.
Yeah. So, I don't know, any other things you guys want to bring up about the book? No, all right. What do you think the last thing, will there be any, does this book have a life to it, do you think? Like,
I think it does, because being a #1 bestseller, regardless of your content, gives you a certain credibility in certain circles that people want to have this book. So it's going to have some legs on it.
I was going to say the joke, but I know he's so sensitive.
I think it will too, because as much as I totally agree with you, Michael, on how I don't think that this book would have ever made it out. I think it would have been like, never mind, I'll do something else. But I still bought it like 4 times and I gave away 3 of them. So It is what it is.
Okay. Yeah. So this book is great to me. Now I really want to see what they are going to do with the Netflix documentary, because I think that will have an opportunity to show a more complete vision of his life thing than just, the very early formative years.
Who is on that now that Ava DuVernay is out?
I have no idea. I don't think they've said, but I'm sure they're going to do it. They ain't going to stop the show because of her, but whoever they do, I'm very curious to see that, because maybe that would show more of it. And I wouldn't be surprised there will be another book like this or something. If the majority of this is pictures, I don't see why they wouldn't do another. I would imagine he's got countless of notebooks. You know, a lot of this was his handwriting of songs and stuff. If they could do that, I don't see why they wouldn't have a whole bunch of these then. As much as he's done over these years, all the stuff he probably has written, pictures and stuff. I would not be surprised if there is some other book, Prince listed as the author or whatever. It'd be interesting. All right. I'm not shitting on the books, so stop it. All right, I'm future looking at the comments now.
I mean, you're being honest. It was lacking. And you just have to accept, he didn't get to finish it. And they padded it. Let's just be honest. They did pad it.
Let me ask this question before we get out of here. Would we accept this sort of treatment if they do his music this way?
Well, we kind of already are.
Do tell. What do you mean?
Yep.
Well, a lot of people have been critical of some of the releases because they are technically unfinished. And this book is an unfinished story. So people are getting these pieces of music. Well, it's not finished. Well, I tell them, it's up to you.
But they're not padding them. I'm talking about in terms of them finishing off like they padded this book.
No.
That's what I'm saying. The way they did this, would you accept the music that way? Okay.
No. That'll get somebody killed. No.
Oh, let me ask this question. Well, so that's how you feel. Kanisa, what about you?
Oh, same.
And
No.
Pooh?
Yeah, I agree. There'd be hell to pay.
So let me ask this other question. Then why do we accept this book that way?
What do you call accept? What's your definition of accept?
Well, if they took an album, I'll give an example. Okay, go ahead. If they took an album and they said this is Prince's, I don't know, whatever they called it, and the songs weren't completed, but we hired the MPG to go in and finish those songs, and here is the album. That's what I mean by complete. So this is a book, a project Prince was working on. He didn't get to complete it, barely started it, but we're going to finish it off for him, put his name on it as if he wrote it, and sell it to you as his memoir. So I'm asking if you can, why do we accept this a completed piece of work that is credited to Prince, but we wouldn't consider his music that way?
I guess it's a question even for us of what we deem the definition of accept, because I bought it, of course, a couple times. I wasn't necessarily, because whenever I talk about this book, I'm usually only talking about what Prince wrote and not what came before it or after it. But I'm grateful that we did get what Prince wrote, even though he might not have put it out that way if he was still here. So it's always confusing because that's what all of these post releases are, because they're not fully finished projects ever. He didn't put them out, and in a way, it is someone finishing it, whether it's someone else mastering it, someone else choosing what we get to hear. I mean, everything that we get besides the re-releases is gonna be like that. And so it's like, even though I don't necessarily agree with how it was put out, I'm going to appreciate what they do put out. That's, that hasn't been available before, because it contributes to his legacy and it puts more out there for him to be represented, at least with his own words in some part, or his own music in some part, when we're not here anymore to advocate for why he should be celebrated.
Okay.
And again, I don't think it's the same thing, because with the book, you have the information from Dan in the beginning, then you have Prince's own words, and then you have pictures. Now, if someone took Prince's own words and decided as an editor, I'm going to fatten this up here, I'm going to cut that out there, that's just the same effect that would be to dick around with the music. Because if you take a master tape of song X, give it to person B, go ahead and finish this. Really? Yeah. Okay, well, I like more drums here and more synth here. I'm going to put another chorus here. No. You feel like it somebody else's deal. No, can't do that.
And Pooh.
I don't know if I can add anything to it. Just overall, just for me, like I was saying, touching the music, like I saw with Justin, they put Justin Timberlake on Michael Jackson, and I absolutely hated that. And I, at the same token, there's talking about having will.i.am doing some stuff as well with unreleased tracks, and I'm like, no, I want the vision of Michael Jackson. For me, I would rather you just put it out as is than have somebody go behind it. Like Mark was saying, no, don't want it like that. If they're just going to go into the vault and just say, okay, hey, we're going to give it to you raw, just like Dirty Mind was. Well, the statement being that it was demos that he didn't just release. Give us that part. But no, don't go in there and touch it up to try to, in their mind, fill out the album. No.
All right. Well, I would argue that's what this book is. It's right. Prince's pages they put in. I think there were more pages than they put in there. Didn't they say there was like a 50 page or something? I can't remember if that's what we got in here now. But
allegedly.
So they took the parts that he did that were not necessarily written for us to hear anyway, but they took that part, put that in the book, but they went and got, so my equivalent to my album analogy would be if they went and got the engineer and had them put their notes at the beginning, right? So, or conversations about the recording of the album at the beginning. And then took pictures from a book they found that wasn't in relation to what he was writing per se. They just happened to find these books by going through it, and then put those pictures in the back. To me, that would be if it was an album, and if it was, here are some songs that Prince did on his tape recorder, like the Piano on a Mic, for instance. If they had took Piano on a Mic, which was not intended for us to hear anyway, but okay, fine. Here's his recordings. And they took that recording and said, well, let's put the engineer's comments or at the beginning when we talked about making the album. And then since it's not long enough, just the songs, we're going to either get more musicians to do a different version of those songs at the end of it so you can hear what it probably would have sounded like fully done. People would lose their goddamn minds if they did that.
Didn't they do that with, what's that? Nothing Compares to You? That version, that cinematic version was not, that was something that an engineer added stuff to. The one that came with Target.
You talking about the Claire Fisher stuff? I didn't hear this. I don't know what the cinematic version.
Target is just him singing a cappella, and they add in orchestra around it. That wasn't ever a thing that was done while he was here. I heard that's something that they added.
Who does that orchestration? Do you know?
I would have to look and see. It's probably Claire Fisher.
I thought it was Claire wasn't Fisher like a tracks that weren't used,
right?
But were recorded for that song. But he just took them tracks off.
Right, and then version. They put it back on and then
right. So that was, but that would be that. But Prince knew that was recorded. He chose not to have those tracks turned. He chose to turn those tracks off, as opposed to getting somebody who had nothing to do with and pull. That'd be like, I guess I would say, like that would be like if you were saying that orchestration was from a different Prince song.
Oh! And they it's not the orchestration part. It's like, okay, so the first like 20, 30 seconds, 40 seconds, it's just Prince singing by himself.
Okay.
And then they mixed in the orchestra behind it. So it's like that take of that song was never engineered that way while he was here. It was just like a creative kind of combination of things to make a new version. And
did you accept that?
It was interesting. I bought the Target version just because I wanted to get it from the store, but right. I'm just saying.
Well, that's all. I'm just asking, I'm kind of trying to spice it up, but I'm just saying, like, why would we know we wouldn't, we say we wouldn't go for that if it was done with his music, but I guess maybe we don't hold his memoir in the same way we would hold his music. Obviously we don't, because we can rationalize it to ourselves one way. But again, let them do how they did Michael Jackson with that Justin Timberlake thing. Probably the rest of the world could give no damns about it, but I know the community would be up in arms about it. But I don't know. To me, this opens the door for something like that. If you can accept this, and it's number one at the charts, and it's getting his legacy out there, well, then let's go ahead and put that Drake vocal on that track. Goddamn, we be number one in the box.
Now,
get his legacy out to the more people. So.
Now, what I thought what they could have done is that since he is talking about these people in his memoir, he's talking about his family, he's talking about these classmates. I wish they had. Now, I mean, I said wish. Why didn't they go and talk to those people and maybe give some background if they have interesting stories to really kind of add to what he was telling us? You know, that would have been kind of interesting.
I agree.
But do the fans care? I'm sorry. I'm being really negative.
No,
I was just really disheartened.
I would say they would care more than they care about Dan's intro.
Well, I mean, the thing about it is like that's what's been so annoying to me because people are like, yeah, I don't really care. Or people would like call out certain people that he named and not others. In that section of the book, it's just been such an erasure of the Black part of Prince post his duck out. I'm just like really discouraged about that. But one thing I would say would be really interesting with what they could have done is done a box set of the Piano Microphone Gala, and this would be liner notes as part of that, because that would make more sense because he was talking about it during the concerts.
Right.
It gives context to what he was talking about. Would have been a nice booklet size, and it just would have been perfect to be presented that way.
Yeah, that would have been cool. I could see that. Yeah. Well, if we don't have anything else, there you have it. I would say make up your own mind. Go get it for yourself and take a look at it. I know some people who have bought it who still haven't opened it up yet and just aren't ready to. I can totally understand that. But I would say, I think for any Prince fan, I think you should get it though. If everything I said, I think you still should get it, but I think you should get it and ask some questions. I don't think you should ever take something and just, you don't feel like you can't question something. You paid for it. So I say you should be able to get it and just spark some conversation. You know what I'm saying? But there you have it. I do think it's cool. I mean, when I go into Barnes and Noble, I go there almost every day, and here it is sitting right there. You know, I see it when I come down the escalator. But I'm like, wow, he's still doing his thing, man. And I'll tell you this: when it came out, the day it came out, I went to the store right when it opened, and I was asking I said, "Hey, you guys got the new Prince book?" She's like, "Oh yeah, let me show you." So she walks me over to this table and she's like, yeah, he's got the good paper on it. He deserves it. I was like, you know what? He does. I thought that was dope. It's just funny to hear. I don't know. Again, I don't know the person's background, but there's just this level of respect people give Prince. I think it's sometimes cool to hear that. So, yeah, man, he did his thing. His name rings out here. So there you go. Let us know what you thought of Prince, The Beautiful Ones. I'm dying to hear what people have thought about this book. Did you read it? Did you enjoy it? Did you not enjoy it? Do you have questions for it? Let us know. Very curious. Now, before we get up out of here, I say this. We're going to end this here. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Listen, check out podcastjuice.net. You can find us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, also the website, podcastjuice.net. Check us out. Listen to all the shows that we have. Of course, we also have our other Prince-related show, Muse to the Pharaoh, and all the other good stuff. If you haven't already, go to our Patreon page, become a member. You can just sign up for $1 a month if you want, or you can do more, but get on board with that. That's a way to help support the show, and we would appreciate it if you do. But then again, as I always say, work it like a job. We'll see you next time.
She was a problem. All of my friends wanted to meet her. Even my man's girlfriend was jocking. Never leave her alone. Had to toss that broad out on the telephone. She was a problem. Yeah, she was fine. She was a problem. More so for my mind. She was a problem. What could I do? She was a problem. Baby girl was the truth. She was a problem. Back in the day, she was a problem. Never had much to say. Spending all my time now. Wonder how does she feel? The only thing about it, don't even know if it's real. She was a problem. Yeah, she was fine. She was so far mine. She was a problem. What could I do? 'Cause she was a problem.